Let's talk about Peter Tobin. For decades, that name meant nothing to most people. He was just a ghost, a predator who was hiding in plain sight, bouncing between cities and using fake names. Today, we're going to follow the investigation that finally dragged him into the light, revealing a trail of terror that went back years and left police with one single, haunting question. Just how many secrets did this man take to his grave? I mean, listen to these words from the judge. They just cut right to the bone, don't they? They perfectly capture that feeling of complete and utter disgust for a man like Peter Tobin. But the thing is, this condemnation, it came really late in the game, long after his web of evil had been spun. So where did the unraveling actually begin? Well, our story doesn't start at the beginning of his crimes, but actually right at the end. The year is 2006, and one single brutal act is about to bring a monster out of the shadows for good. Okay, so Angelika Kluk was a young Polish student. She was working as a cleaner in a Glasgow church to help pay for her studies. She was last seen alive with the church's handyman, a guy everyone just knew as Pat McLaughlin. When her body was found, and this is horrific, hidden in a chamber right underneath the church floor, Pat was gone, vanished. He immediately became the prime suspect. But here's the kicker. Pat McLaughlin wasn't a real person. It was an alias for Peter Tobin, a man who absolutely should have been on the authorities' radar. Get this. He was a convicted sex offender with a violent past who had been released from prison just 2 years earlier. He was using a fake name specifically to dodge the system and avoid detection. So Tobin was caught pretty quickly, and at his trial, the judge called him exactly what he was, an evil man. But for the detectives on the case, this conviction wasn't an ending. No way. It was a terrifying new beginning, because they had to ask themselves, if he did this, who else has he hurt? And that one question, well, it led investigators to start digging. And I mean that literally. They started digging not just through old case files, but into the very ground he once walked on, leading to a discovery that is pure nightmare fuel. So the police start this massive task of mapping out Tobin's entire life, every address he ever had, and one place in particular stood out, this totally ordinary-looking house in the seaside town of Margate, where he lived way back in 1991. It quickly became the new focus of their entire investigation. This is the house. I mean, look at it. It looks completely normal, right? Like any other house on the street. But in November of 2007, the garden of this home would give up its darkest secrets and confirm the police's absolute worst fears. Peter Tobin wasn't just a murderer, he was a serial killer. In that very garden, police unearthed the remains of 2 young women who had vanished 16 years earlier. 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton had disappeared from a town in Scotland. Just a few months later, 18-year-old Dina McDonough vanished while hitchhiking home from a festival. For their families, can you imagine 16 long years of not knowing anything? It was a heartbreaking discovery, but it was, at long last, an answer. With the evidence from that garden, Tobin was convicted for the murders of both Vicky and Dinah. He was already serving a life sentence, but these 2 additional life sentences officially cemented his status as one of Britain's most depraved and evil serial killers. Okay, so that's 3 confirmed victims, but the investigators, they were sure there were more. This conviction kicked off one of the biggest police operations of its kind, a massive mission to find out the true, terrifying scope of Peter Tobin's crimes. It was called Operation Anagram. The goal was simple, but wow, was it monumental. They set out to create a complete timeline of Tobin's entire life, every job, every house, every car, every fake name, and then cross-reference all of that with every single unsolved murder or disappearance that could possibly be linked to him. And the scale of this thing was just immense. I mean, we're talking about detectives following up on over 1,400 separate lines of inquiry. 1,400. That number alone just shows you how seriously they took the threat that this man had posed for so long. You know, nothing was off the table. Investigators even looked into this chilling claim Tobin had supposedly made to a prison psychiatrist, a boast that he had killed 48 women. Now, was it just some sick fantasy or a horrifying confession? They had no choice but to find out. So, as Operation Anagram dug deeper and deeper, a really disturbing pattern started to emerge. Tobin's life kept intersecting with a number of other tragic, unsolved cases, creating this web of suspicion that, honestly, still haunts investigators today. I mean, for example, take a look at Louise Kay and Jesse Earl. They both disappeared from Eastbourne, a town where Tobin lived and worked. The links are just tantalizingly close. There was even wild speculation for a time that he could be the infamous Bible John killer from Glasgow in the 60s, though DNA did eventually rule him out of that one. And this is the ultimate frustration of this whole story. Despite all those man-hours, all of the data, and these incredibly strong suspicions, Operation Anagram was officially wound down in 2011. They just couldn't find the hard forensic proof, the DNA, the fingerprints, that they needed to charge him with anything else. So, with no more convictions coming, Tobin was simply destined to live out the rest of his days locked away, taking all of his dark secrets with him to the grave. And in October 2022, that's exactly what happened. Peter Tobin died in a hospital, a prisoner to the very end. He never showed an ounce of remorse, never confessed to another crime, and never offered a single shred of comfort to the families of women who vanished in all the places he was known to be.
And this final detail, it just tells you everything you need to know. He died completely and utterly alone. No family, no friends, no one came forward to claim his body. His ashes were scattered at sea. A final, anonymous end for a man who caused so much pain.
So Peter Tobin is gone, but the questions are still here. We know about 3 victims. The police suspect there are many, many more. For countless families who are still searching for answers about their missing loved ones, the shadow of Peter Tobin will probably linger forever. It just leaves you with that one final, chilling question, doesn't it? How many of his secrets actually died with him?